historic moment. Now in the studio with me here is Mohamed Taha from BBC Arabic. And in the last hour, we've seen this interview that the Syrian Prime Minister has done with Al Arabiya, saying that there should be free elections should be held to allow people to decide their leadership. I mean, this is just extraordinary, isn't it, what's happening?
Yeah, of course. The Prime Minister now trying to show that he is not part of the Al-Assad government. He is the head of the government, but he's trying to detach himself from the regime somehow. He's trying to be the man of wisdom and giving advices and trying to be also part of the new system. So even in a speech before that, he offered his services to the new power. So apparently he does not rule out that he remain to be a prime minister under the rule of HTS. To what extent they would accept that or not, but yeah, he didn't flee the country. He's detaching himself from the President Bashar al-Assad, and he was trying to find himself a rule in the new system. It's very interesting for him and brave for him to do that. But I think what encouraged him to do that is that this new power, they did not shed any blood at all. So there are many atrocities and many bad memories. Lots of people lost their loved ones under the rule of President Bashar al-Assad. But when they entered Aleppo, we didn't see any bloodshed. When they entered Homs or Hama or now Damascus, there is no bloodshed.
In fact, we've even heard this rebel group leader talking to his supporters and telling them to not touch the public institutions until there's been an official handover, which is quite surprising.
Of course, these groups for a long time were linked with ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and we would expect them to be to have revenge on this regime. We saw just pictures of them entering the house of Bashar al-Assad, and what perceived to be the house of Bashar al-Assad, with a big garden and lots of marbles and lots of expensive furniture, and they looked peaceful. They didn't break anything. They didn't smash anything. And so on and so forth. The only thing that they smashed and break are the statues of Bashar al-Assad and his father Hafez al-Assad. They broke these statues wherever they were in the capital, Damascus. Yes, it is very interesting to see them very peaceful, and it is very interesting to see what will be coming on.
Well, there would be people who would be very concerned, weren't there? As you say, former links to Al-Qaeda, human rights abuses when they were in Idlib, a sort of authoritarian rule there. There will be people very concerned about that. There are also supporters of the regime still, aren't there, in Syria? So there's a lot of people to convince. They've had this rebranding, how they're bringing in minorities and showing tolerance to minority groups. There would be a lot of people yet to be convinced that that is what they are all about.
Of course, but these people, they don't have any choice. We did some interviews with people who are affiliated with President Bashar al-Assad, and they seemed very reasonable with dealing with the newcomer rulers, and they are very reasonable. That offer from the Prime Minister to hold elections means that he expected to find some ears from these forces about holding elections and trying to unify Syria, that is at the moment very divided. We saw this rebranding before with Taliban in Afghanistan when they returned to power. We saw this rebranding and embracing the new systems, new power. There were some ideas that they couldn't get rid of, but Taliban that we can see them ruling Afghanistan, they are not Taliban that they ruled Afghanistan before. So
it's a terrible situation for the women in Afghanistan.
Of course. To what extent these forces would be able to embrace all all ideas. What's their position towards women, as you rightly said? What's their position towards democracy and elections? What's their position towards the current state organizations, state institutions? What's their position towards, you know, movie industry in Syria? Syria is one of the biggest movie industries in the Arab world, that they do this the movies and the series and different massive amount of movie production there. To what extent they would embrace all of these? We're really seeing a very interesting times in the Middle East. But what we can see also, that they wouldn't be ruling Syria on their own. There are other forces are controlling different parts of the country. There is Qasad, the Kurds are controlling southeast of Syria.
And Turkey's involvement.
Yeah. Of course, Turkey there are some troops that are affiliated to Turkey in the north west and in the north of Syria. Turkey is not interested that the Kurds would be having country, because this is affecting their national interest, as they say. Russia still has some troops, some bases, an air base, and an important port in Tartus. So to what extent Russia is going to stay? Iran a little bit is the biggest loser in what's happening, because Iran really, there are some analysts are saying that the aim of all what is happening at the moment is to cut Iran from any influence in Syria, and this is happening. Iran and Hezbollah now are very busy with fighting with Israel. They don't have any power to defend the Al-Assad regime anymore, and they are looking forward to have a peaceful situation in southern Lebanon. So all of these forces are on the ground in Syria. To what extent they would be able to work together to do elections, to have a fair representation in the coming rule, or Syria would be divided, as we see the model that's happening in different countries in the Middle East. We see the model in Libya, where tribes and different troops are controlling different parts of the country. We see the war in Sudan, where different factions are fighting between each other. We see the fighting also in Yemen that stayed for a long time. And we see the situation in Iraq, where also different parts of Iraq different parts of Iraq are ruled by different forces. To what model Syria will be in? This is what people are really looking for. But at the end of the day, people looking for peace, for hope, for future, for the coming generation, for their children.
And what about the perhaps revival of IS?
This is a big question as well. To what extent also IS would be able to flourish in that new environment, and to what extent these forces would allow them to flourish? So as we saw, Mohamed al-Julani, or his real name is Ahmed Shara, the head of HTS, we saw him in an interview with a Western media TV channel. He looked like a statesman, and the statement that you just read, that he called everybody to protect the public institutions. He called the citizens not to be close to them, everybody to be careful. He's spreading peace, spreading a message of cooperation and peace. So to what extent ISIS could flourish in that context? There are people in Syria definitely affiliated to IS, and they would be looking at this moment as if it is a suitable moment for them to come back. Syria now in a very, very turning point that we do not know to what direction it is going. It is a very historical moment in Syria that many other countries saw, and the people of Syria that are coming back to their homes or fleeing away, the people who are affiliated to Al-Assad regime, and now all of them looking for peace and hope.
Thank you so much, Mohamed Taha from BBC Arabic there. And as you're saying, we're looking at the pictures of people at the border, the Lebanon-Syria border, cars lined up to cross over from Lebanon into Syria, people who now perhaps feel that it is safe for them to return to Syria. Let's bring in our security correspondent, Frank Gardner. Frank, Mohamed just saying there that, this is a major turning point, of course, for Syria. And the question is, I suppose, which way it goes. We've been hearing these efforts, seemingly, from the HTS rebel group for a orderly transition of power, telling his supporters not to attack government buildings. We've heard from the Prime Minister saying that there should be free elections. What do you think, Frank? How do you think this is going to go? Will there be an orderly transition of power, do you think?
I think the early signs are quite encouraging, but there's no question that Syria is now at a fork in the road. This can go either way, and I've written a short piece for our live page on the BBC News website that says that. Because on the one hand, if Abu Mohamed